Chapter 32, Bear Father.
What was that?
Glacier yelled, running out. We had heard gunshots outside. I feared the worst. The baby was crying in the other room. I'll go out and check. You just stay here and stay calm. I ran out the door and down the stairs. I saw Slack laying there on the ground. Weed was nowhere to be found. I approached my friend and looked. There was a pool of blood on the ground around him. I looked and I found a gunshot hole in the back of his head. That must have been what was fired. Weed shot him. It was fight to the death with someone who had no intention of fighting fair at all. Oh. His body lay motionless on the ground and I got scared. Slack Buckley had been murdered. I called the police. They rushed out. Both Glacier and I knew that it was Weed at the door. We told the police and they remembered apprehending him months ago for a marijuana charge. They said it was impossible because he was still in custody at the Washeed County Jail for another 8 months. But I know I saw him. Please, officer, please believe me.
I've heard your story, but it's impossible. Mr. Reed is still safely in custody.
But
I'm sorry, there's nothing more I can do.
All units be on the lookout for an individual who has escaped from the Washeed County Jail. The suspect is approximately 6 feet tall, blonde hair, brown eyes, and a muscular build. The name is Jacob Reed. I repeat, Jacob Reed. Suspect was armed after knocking out a guard and stealing a gun. He is armed and potentially deadly.
A voice came over the officer's speaker.
So, you saw Jacob Reed?
He asked me once more. Yes.
Okay, thank you. My apologies for the misunderstanding, and I'm sorry for the loss of your friend.
He took his hat off and shook my hand before returning to the cruiser. I didn't want people to hear about it on the news or anywhere else. I called Slack's parents.
Mrs. Buckley,
I said. Yes, and who is this? Hi, this is Perry, Slack's roommate. Oh, Perry, how are you? My voice started to tremble. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. You're quiet. Is something wrong? Yes, it's about Slack. Her voice got more urgent. What about Slack? Is he okay? Well, tell me! He was murdered. I had it come out all at once. I heard the phone fall on the other end. Mrs. Buckley? Mrs. Buckley? There was no answer. I waited a few more minutes before hanging the phone up. Glacia was in the apartment. I didn't want to tell her either. I hated this. I was afraid. I was scared. I was unsure as to what anyone would say or do. Glacia. I trembled.
Oh my goodness, something's wrong. What's wrong?
Well, you see,
Out with it!
she started crying. Slack. Slack.
What about him?
He was killed.
What?
The gunshots we heard were Weed. He shot Slack.
No!
She started convulsing. I tried to hug her. She pushed me back.
You're lying to me. I don't believe you.
She tried to go outside. I stood in front of the door. I don't want you to see it. I won't let you go out there.
Why?
Because Weed is an escaped prisoner who could be could? Oh, wait, sorry, there's an out in the... He already showed that he is.
Why'd you phrase it that way the first time, you fucking...
Sorry. She cried harder. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to cry, but I had to stay strong for Glacia, at least for now. I heard a car pull into the parking lot. No! A scream echoed into the apartment. I ran outside. It was Slack's parents. Mrs. Buckley.
Pauline!
Slack's dad came out from the car. He joined his wife. How long ago did this happen? She asked me. maybe 3 hours or so.
You waited this long to tell us? Her voice was broken, and she was crying between every word.
I wanted to contact the police first.
Who did this? His dad asked.
Our old roommate, Jacob Reed.
Why? She demanded.
I don't know. He barged into the apartment, said he wanted slack, and they took it outside to not have Glacia or the baby see it.
Was he in jail for marijuana?
He escaped today. Someone told the police officer over speakers.
And he had a gun!
A stolen police gun.
The parents stood there stunned. Complete silence in the parking lot as we stood there that night. I couldn't remember a more somber evening at this apartment. I thought that weed being gone was gonna be a good thing. Instead, this happens. How could we have ever seen this coming? It took all of us by surprise. News reporters filtered on and off the scene all night. Nobody wanted to offer any comments at the time except to stay on the lookout for weed. The police submitted a ledger and they were in hot pursuit. I hated all the news reports about it. I watched the 6 o'clock news the next morning, and that was the headline story. For those attending Rashid College, all operations on the school will be shut down today. A student who attended the school was brutally murdered outside the Dome Street apartment complex. The student, whose name isn't being released yet, was found outside his apartment by a friend. The police weren't there, but one reported on the altercation that took place. Be on the lookout for the suspect, Jacob Reed, a man who recently escaped from Rashid County Jail. He had been last seen at the student's apartment. More details as they become available.
We didn't want Slack's name released to the public yet, but everyone knew who it was. The school held a memorial on the lawn that morning to honor a man that many considered a friend, and all knew as a good man with a heart, capacity to love, and willing spirit. One student, someone I didn't know, remarked at the memorial,
Slack was a man who you saw around campus, and even if you didn't know him, you couldn't help but admire for one reason or another. I always saw him and thought that he was someone else that would be really neat to know.
The memorial ended an hour later with a school-wide moment of silence and respect for what one of his professors called a person you couldn't help but love.
I'm raising my hand in there's one paragraph left.
Going back to that apartment that night was lonely. You could see the remains in the lines where the police had taken the corpse from the ground. A red tint still lingered on the tire of the Cobalt.
You couldn't clean that up?
I had an idea. Running inside, I grabbed a couple pictures that his mother left for Glacia and the baby. I started up the Cobalt, drove it through campus, into the middle of the lawn where the memorial was held. Careful not to knock anything over, I placed the pictures, still framed on the hood of the car, and walked back to the apartment in an honored silence. Even though Glacia and the baby would be there, it wouldn't be the same without my friend. I'm going to miss him.
Well, I guess now that it's over, I might as well say it. A person that everybody loved, a person you couldn't help but love. No, okay? Slack is just the flattest fucking piece of shit protagonist I've ever had the misfortune of reading the adventures of. And his girlfriend is this neurotic bitch. And they're a perfect match because they're both fucking crazy. And I hate them both. And I'm glad this happened to Slack.